Welcome to the Live Like Eden podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay, and I'm thrilled that you're here. Years ago, out of nowhere, I found myself in a radical shift in consciousness that took me over 20 years to fully wrap my head around. Yes, that's right. It took me a long time, and without any warning, down the rabbit hole of darkness I went. Now I'm here to share with you all the insights of awakening, spirituality, health, the energetic world we're living in, and my absolute favorite topic, just how crazy the ego mind can be. These subjects are designed to help you understand the awakening process, to open your mind, and prepare you for your own unique spiritual journey toward inner peace. So I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's discussion. Before we get started with today's show, I want to share with you something I've been working on. I have created a quiz just for you to see where you are on your own unique spiritual path. Everybody loves a quiz, right? You can go to my website at livelikeeden.com, click on the quiz pop-up, and answer 10 quick questions. You'll get an immediate response emailed to you with your results, a personalized podcast playlist including 5 Live Like Eden episodes that will offer you assistance where you currently are. And I've also thrown in a few bonus episodes that you'll receive a few days later. If you're a spiritual junkie, you're in the midst of awakening, or you're simply curious where you might be in your own spiritual process, check it out and feel free to share with your friends who might be interested too. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I just had a great opportunity to sit down with a woman by the name of Lori Pappas. Not only is she a successful entrepreneur and a survivor of childhood trauma, she has just recently released a new book called The Magic of Yes. Today, we go over all the main topics in the book. Her true passion today is to help other people. All the things she's learned in her life, she's brought them together and come up with the Dream Framework. It's available for you free of charge to just download and list the things in your life if you have something you want to do, and it gives you the framework to make that happen. I hope you enjoy our chat today, and I'll see you next week. Hello, Lori. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Lindsay. I'm delighted to be here. It's a beautiful day.
It is. We have a lot of sun where I am. I'm very excited about that. I'm really anxious to talk to you today because I've read your book. I'm almost done. I have like a chapter left, and it's really wonderful. And it's called The Magic of Yes. And I really want to dive in, talk about lots of different things that you bring up that are really, really, I think, insightful and helpful for other people. But before we get to that, I always like starting with just giving you the floor for a minute to share who you are, a little bit about your background, and how you decided one day to write this book. How did you get here?
Okay. Well, I, like so many other people, am a survivor of a difficult childhood. And I think sometimes that sets us up to have reason to reflect a lot and try to make sense of what it was that we went through and why we are where we are. And I became very aware when I was 17 years old that whatever I was going to be up to me, that I didn't really have the support of anybody helping me, and I didn't have any good role models. So I took that on, and my friends during that time were the rock and roll stars of the 60s. So I grew up right now, I'm 76 years old and loving my age, by the way. But that does mean that my formative years were during that hippie era of the 60s, which was a very exciting time. And I became an entrepreneur. Mainly because I'm not a good follower. I'm really a crappy follower. I have a tendency to always think that I can figure stuff out and whatever. And that led me to a career of starting a software company back in that would have been the early 80s. And it was right at the advent of the personal computer. And that was a great time to provide services to small businesses. So I got really lucky.
Yeah, perfect timing.
Perfect timing. business grew well. I sold it when I was 49
Wow.
and I was able to retire. But I didn't do retirement well.
Hmm.
I I guess I was just too young, too much energy, and I had lived the American dream because I started the business when I was a single mom with two little kids.
Wow.
Um, but it wasn't very fulfilling.
Yeah.
And and circumstances happened that I finally realized, oh, I needed to deal with the trauma from my childhood. And I did. And in doing that, I was able to discover myself, discover the essence of who I was. Because I always felt it was so strange that here I was a successful business person, but I really was not a very happy wife. And by
Uh-huh.
now I was on my second marriage, still not happy being
Yeah.
married. But that was our big supposed to in my generation is that you're
Yeah.
supposed to get married, right?
Right. Get married, have kids. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And so I ended up going to traveling a lot all over the world. And as I traveled, I started questioning all these beliefs that I was told were the things that I was supposed to believe, and because I started seeing things that showed me that what my parents told me was true wasn't necessarily true, and that there were big gaps in what I knew,
Yeah.
and so one thing after another led me to a desert in Niger, where I came across a little girl that was just so skinny and sick and had flies on her eyes, but yet she was carrying a younger sibling. And all she really wanted was my water bottle. Because if
Huh.
you had a water bottle, that meant that you had a chance for life.
Yeah.
And of course, I gave her my water bottle, but I realized that little girl could have been my darling Ella, my little granddaughter, and that Ella had done nothing special to be born my granddaughter, and this little girl had done nothing wrong to be born into this disease-ridden life.
Right.
So off, off I went to another career.
Wow.
I started a nonprofit. I thought, well, I knew how to run a business. I could just run one in Africa and get all the flies off all these girls' faces.
I bet
Well,
that
it's a
was quite,
little,
yeah, that must have been a shock, right? I mean, you must have
yeah,
learned a lot.
like
Yeah.
duh. I mean, all the, I mean, you're starting from nothing and then you hire employees, and instead of them being the kind of employees I'm used to that are motivated by different factors when we lived in a free society versus people that live in a more dictatorial society that's based on fear. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a whole different ballgame. And
I
one
bet.
thing after another, being an overachiever, we overachieved. I mean, we grew the business and helped a lot of people. And then the time came where I pretty much got kicked out of the country.
Oh no.
Um,
Well, that sounds like a
I
good
mean,
story, Lori. I mean,
yeah, well, that's
how do
that'll
you
take us in a, that'll
how do
take us
you
another direction.
I was gonna say, how do you get kicked out of the country? That's what I was,
Well, really, the thing of it is, by this time, let's just kind of look at the timeline. I was in my mid 60s. I was a single woman. Right, finally, had gotten divorced from my second husband. So I was a single woman living in Ethiopia, and the country was on fire. The conflict had really arisen. There's a lot of tribal clashing that goes on in countries like that. And I worked in a very marginalized area, and it was a gun running area. And and it also was an area where there's a lot of land grabs going on,
mm,
where the government is taking large blocks of land, selling it to foreign investors to bring in money. But the
yeah,
problem is it displaces the people and wrecks their
right.
livelihood.
Yeah.
So, um, and the embassy really let me know that I was, I really was a hostage target
Oh, geez.
because, and it really wasn't fair for me to keep working there because they would have to put resource on me.
Yeah.
And they really needed to put resource otherwise.
Yeah.
And the timing was perfect because I had started to get a little bored, and my daughter talked me into online dating, and this guy popped up on the screen, and I met him when I was on leave, and I thought, oh, well, you know, why
Maybe.
not take another flyer?
Yeah. Something you seem to be good at.
Yeah. So I did.
Well, that's
And
cool.
that went on another chapter, and then eventually I knew that I needed to write a book.
Hmm.
And the reason why I needed to write a book, well, first of all, when I was in Ethiopia, like I said, I lived alone, and I'd be really, really busy during the day and come back home really tired. I mean, tired of trying to understand what people were talking about because the language issues, tired of
Hmm.
being harassed by the government. And I would get finally into my house, sit down, all cuddled up with all my clothes on because it would usually be really cold, and the lights would go out.
Mm.
And all I would have would be the light of my three candles,
Hmm.
which meant I couldn't read.
Yeah.
So I had to think. And being forced to think, I
Yeah.
I thought really
A lot.
the first a lot. I thought a lot, and all of a sudden I realized I really knew a lot, and there was really a lot that I could share with other people.
Yeah.
And so then in writing when I did get enough energy again to write my book, it came to me that really what I had was a model that other people could use. And that was a model, the acronym is DREAM, meaning that once we're able to really state our desire and then reflect, we're able to explore possibilities,
Hmm.
acknowledge what our challenges might be, and then find a way to soothe our soul with a mantra as we reach our desire.
Yeah.
And I found that that dream model really works.
Yeah. Well, and you weave it
Yeah.
through your book, which is really, really wonderful. Every chapter you give another example. For those of you that haven't read her book, but hopefully will buy it after we talk today, it's a really interesting way that you weave that through the whole book, and the way that you describe it is really cool. So we can
Well,
get to that a little bit too later.
yeah. Well, Lindsay, tell me, is there some big desire that you have or had?
Oh gosh. Well, next to getting my kids grown, I've got four kids. Two are older, and I've got two left, and two twin
Uh-huh.
daughters in high school. But no, to answer that in honesty,
Right.
yeah, my dream and what I'm currently working on is helping people going through sort of the mental and physical disturbances of spiritual awakening. I myself sort of spontaneously went through a just out of nowhere a massive shift in my awareness, and took me, God, it's been almost 20 years to fully understand and adapt and live in the world in a completely new way. And I feel like there's just not enough information or support for people that are going through these changes. And so it's my desire and dream to be that voice and help other people as they go through it. Because I think, and maybe you might have found this, right, as you're in Ethiopia and Africa, that the tribal people, right, with the shamans had a little more connection to somebody that might suddenly experience some energetic shift, or, that's lost in our culture here in America. So that's kind of what I'm trying to shine a light on.
Right. And so what do you think about in order to do that? What do you reflect about?
Well, I use my own personal experience as a guide, right? Because I
Right.
could never, and I think this is for anybody, your own
Right.
experience is your teacher,
It is, isn't
It
it?
is.
It really is. And it's
Yeah,
so rich.
it is. And in your case, when I'm reading your book, it's the same way. You're taking your life and looking at it through a teaching perspective, that you're the student going through it, you know.
Right.
And when you don't see it that way, you're still trying to control every little piece, right?
Right,
Like
right, yeah.
you mentioned the paradigm shifts that you had and shifting perspective, and it's huge when you shift into a different way of sight, and seeing everything. So,
Isn't
yeah.
it? I mean, it's to me that is the fun of it. It's like, oh my God, it's like I use the analogy in the book, and I think it's so true. It's like you go to an eye doctor and they flip those little gizmos, and
I
instead
know.
of flipping those little gizmos so you can see the E better
I
or,
know.
read another couple lines down, all of a sudden is if it was like a cultural flip.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're able to look at that culture and think, oh, wow, I wonder why they do that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It was, and I went through such a shift when I was working over in Ethiopia down in the extreme southwest corner with the Hammer tribe. And I spent a lot of time down there, and I was forced to shut up and listen
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't speak the language.
Yeah.
And so sitting there waiting for my questions to be interpreted and hoping that the answers would come back that answered my question,
Yeah.
which oftentimes did not,
Yeah.
um, I would look at the people. I mean, just watch them. And here there are people that very uneducated from a traditional way,
Mm-hmm.
but very, very well versed in how to survive in their landscape.
Sure.
A whole different kind of education.
Oh, absolutely.
And living in an environment where collaboration is absolutely key,
Mm-hmm.
because if you were competitive, you'd die.
Yeah. Well, that's another point you bring up, and I was going to ask you this in your book as you talk about this maybe you experienced that competition you said as a young person through business
Right.
and obviously being an entrepreneur in the computer industry, I'm sure was a big
Yeah.
competition factor, right?
Right,
In the
right,
tech
right,
world.
right,
And then that shift you say that happens when you went down there, like you just said, and you became a
right,
collaborator. Can you speak a little
right.
bit more about that? What that's like?
Oh, yeah, it really, really is a big shift. Because when you think about what is competition, it means kind of beating out the other
Mm-hmm.
person. And even as competitors, when we try to talk about win-win situations, um, which is a good kind of competition in my mind, it also is trying to further your product,
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell your goods, generate your
Right.
revenue in some way. And in collaboration, it really is all about how can we collectively reach a goal. And just like right now, one of my big endeavors is to grow my Facebook group,
Mm-hmm.
which is called the Wise Woman Sisterhood. And the reason behind that is I'm right now I am having this phenomenal opportunity to meet so many incredible women, people like you, Lindsay, that are really committed to trying to help other people.
Yeah.
And, but we have singular voices
Mm-hmm.
unless we're able to come together and
Right.
collaborate and share that voice. Um, then all of a sudden we become an absolute powerhouse.
No, 100%. Yeah.
And that's that's my new goal
Mm.
is to provide a place and to provide a platform and to help be a catalyst to raise the voice of all of us
Yeah.
so we can get some sense in this crazy world of
Yeah.
ours. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we women basically do a bit better job. I
Well,
might be just a tad
you're going
biased,
to be a
but
little biased. I think you're right. I think
yeah,
that we have, as women, I mean, we're built completely differently than men. I
right.
talk about this a lot. It's like men just don't think the way women do. We don't communicate the same. We're completely taking in. I feel like when I'm with my husband, sometimes I'm like, we are in the same room and we are it's like a totally different experience we're
Yeah,
having,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
anyway, well, maybe we can talk about this too, is one of the really key themes that I'm picking up when I'm reading your book is just this idea that you don't have to live in your childhood. Like you said, you had a not
Right.
so great childhood. Can you talk about what it's like to move past that for maybe people who are listening that really are still holding the trauma of whatever happened to them when they were
Right.
younger? How do you get past that?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let me use one of my new good friends as an example. And Angie, when she was 4 years old, she was enrolled in kindergarten, probably because she was a bit rambunctious and her parents did not know what to do with her.
Yeah.
Angie shows up in kindergarten ready to take on the world. And she's funny and she's smart and she's sassy, and the kids like her
Yeah.
until it's recess time or gym class. Then, of course, all the boys are the team leaders, and the boys start picking the different people to be on their team.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who the last person is? It's always Angie
Mm-hmm.
because she's roly poly.
Yeah.
And because she's roly poly, they don't want her on the
The
team.
team.
Yeah, so the teacher would always have to put her on the team.
Yeah.
And by the time she was 10, 11, the same kind of thing was going on, but her personality force was such that she could just keep making jokes and be funny. And she felt her superpower was being Angie. That's what her
Mm-hmm.
daddy always told her.
Yeah.
Uh, One day in speech class, in college speech class, by now she was 26 years old. She had gone to school a little bit later. She got up to give her speech in the front of the class and she could not move.
Oh,
It
wow.
was like her feet were made of lead, her
Mm.
knees were locked. She couldn't move.
Mm. Frozen, like a
And
fight or flight. Yeah.
absolutely, just
Yeah.
totally frozen. And it came to her, oh my God, these people were judging her.
Mm.
They were defining her by being fat. She was the fat girl.
Mm.
And that's
Oh,
how they looked at her. That's what she was.
yeah.
And she just spiraled into despair.
Hmm.
And she didn't like that. She did
Yeah.
not like that at all. It just felt awful.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, Angie was not self-aware. Up until that point, she wasn't self-aware. She knew how she felt, that she felt she was smart and witty and funny, but other people were interpreting her differently. They
Mm-hmm.
were defining her by being fat. And she said, you know what? To hell with them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let them define me. I'm going to define me.
Right.
I'm going to be the one that decides who I am. And she took it on. She absolutely took it on. She really worked on the whole piece of loving herself for who she was
Mm-hmm.
and realizing all of her wonderful attributes that she has.
Yeah.
And her self-talk started being, and I absolutely love this, was her self-talk was, I'm going to wake up every morning and I'm going to choose PMA, not PMS.
That's a good mantra.
Exactly. And what that really meant was her positive personal attitude,
Yeah.
not her, what is it, premenstrual syndrome or
Syndrome.
whatever
Yeah.
PMS is. Yeah. So,
Wow. Well,
so
that's a
that's
great
what
story.
Andy was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like Andy realized what her D was. Her D was to be the best possible version of herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so every morning when she'd wake up, she would reflect on the experiences of the day before and what made the day great. And she would explore what was there anybody that she needed to apologize to,
Mm.
because she wanted to make sure that she could drop whatever emotional baggage she was carrying from yesterday,
Yeah.
and she would just be free to be nimble today.
Yeah.
And we all know what her mantra was. her mantra was, I'm going to have PMA, not PMS. So that's, that was Angie's dream, and she lives her dream. And you know what? Today, she's not only considered a titan, by Brains magazine, she's listed as one of the top 500 influencers in the world.
Huh.
She has a podcast. It's The Girl with Purple Hair Talks Business. It's incredibly successful.
Oh, that's
She's
cool.
she's the most fun person to be around.
Yeah. Well, she's content with herself now, sounds like. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, her life can be a shit show from a medical standpoint. She's going through some challenges right now,
Yeah.
but it doesn't impact how she looks at her day.
Yeah. Well, that's
It
so
doesn't define her.
right. And that's also what you're speaking to there is the idea, like the title of your book, The Magic of Yes. What you're really saying is yes to whatever happens. I'm going to
Yeah,
maintain my, like you said, your dream, your mantra of whatever it is for yourself, no matter what happens on the outside, no matter what the
exactly.
world presents me. Yeah.
Yep, yep. Because we have, as humans, we have the most wonderful ability to always have a choice. We
Yes.
do have a choice.
Yeah.
No matter who we are, where we are, we can choose how we're dealing with whatever that is.
Yeah. A lot of people don't believe that though. They think that everything's happening to them. And then they use it as it's like, I'm justified because this happened and now I can do these things.
Right.
But it's,
And
yeah, I think it's a trap.
well, it's really what it means is they're falling, we all can be victims of different things.
Yeah.
I was victim of some bad stuff. You've been a
Yeah.
victim of bad stuff. Everybody's been a victim
Yeah.
of some bad stuff. But it's our choice whether or not we're going to fall into victimhood.
Right. Which is
That's our
completely different.
choice.
Yeah.
Totally different. And if you're going to let that define you, sorry, Charlie,
Yeah.
you're not headed for a good dream. There's not any
No.
real kind of like a nightmare going on
Yeah. You're
there.
going to live the hellish dream.
Yeah, yeah, you're going to live your nightmare. I mean,
Yeah.
let's live a positive dream.
Right.
So,
Well, exactly.
yeah.
When did you in your life realize that you were going to take the magic of yes? When did you have a moment in your life where you just suddenly realized I don't have to believe that or do this anymore? Like if your family was a certain way, or was it always with you?
You know, I think that what was always with me was the willingness. I never considered myself a victim. I mean, even when my dad committed me to a nut house, and if you need that, want to find out that story, you got to read my book. But um, the even when he committed me to the nut house, and I was sitting there, I never thought, "Oh, poor me." I
Mhm.
thought, "Oh, I'm in this nut house, and I better get the hell out of here before they take my mind away from me." Because
Right.
back in those days, they were doing lobotomies
Oh, I know that's
and
crazy.
really awful
That's
stuff.
crazy.
So, I figured it out.
Yeah.
And once I got out of there and I realized my photographic memory was gone, instead of saying, "Oh, poor me," I think I first said, "Oh, shit." But then after that, excuse me.
Yeah.
But
It's
after
all right.
that, I said, "Okay, so I think we better start working on trying to learn how to remember, because
Yeah.
I never had to cultivate a memory because I had a photographic one."
Wow.
And so at 17, I had to start learning how to remember what I read on that page of the book.
Huh.
And
Is that because of what they gave you in there, the drugs and
yeah,
stuff?
the
Yeah.
drugs. Yeah,
Wow. Did that
yeah.
stay permanently? Like you just lost the memory thing?
Well, I lost the photographic memory right after it was gone. And I really had a hard time remembering. I was reading the book For Whom the Bell Tolls by Winston Churchill. No, no, Hemingway. That's a Hemingway
Mm-hmm.
one. And and I realized I read a page and I couldn't remember what was on the page I read. So I'd go back and I'd read it again. And I
Mm.
still couldn't remember. Then I'd read it again and I still couldn't remember. And I also deal with an issue that and I didn't realize it at the time because it wasn't diagnosed. I have ADD, meaning, I just thought my molecules all were scattered all over inside my head, and I had a hard time corralling them.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, Lindsay, you can teach yourself to improve your memory. And for years, I struggled a bit. I could remember things that mattered to me. Like if there's something that really mattered to me, I could get it into my head and keep it in my head. Or
Yeah.
if there were things that, and being the boss of a business and with a lot of employees, if somebody else was there to remember the details, I was good.
Mm.
And if the details were going to be dependent on me, I would force myself to remember them.
Yeah.
And I got very good at scanning things, at saying, oh, I know I read this, and I think it was like that, and going back. And over the years, I never regained my photographic memory, but I've got a pretty good memory.
Yeah.
I can, but I've worked at it.
Yeah, you had to try harder at it. That must have been
Right.
shocking to you to be, if you've had such a
Yeah.
clear memory, then suddenly you're just foggy. I mean,
Well, it's kind of like, what the fuck? I
yeah,
mean, it's
exactly.
like,
Like what happened? Yeah.
what went on? And because literally before then, I could actually, if I was going to take a test, I would just flip through the pages in my mind and find the page in my memory and read it off the
Yeah.
page and write down the answer.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, really cool.
Really cool. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, but it's really lazy,
Yeah.
you know, and, and all of a sudden there's no pages there. They're all blank. And so I
Hmm.
wasn't foggy. I just didn't, I just didn't have the pictures in my mind anymore.
Huh.
And so I had to learn the data.
Yeah.
And, and then with the time in Ethiopia, when I was forced to reflect, I had the data. And now I just had to get rid of the noise.
Yeah.
And then that's what became the wisdom.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
opening came in the wisdom. That's interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
we can talk a little bit about, there's another thing that I love in your book that you bring up is forgiveness.
Oh,
And
yeah.
forgiveness to me is like the key to life if you want to let go and really feel okay and feel liberated and understanding to the whatever has occurred, right, as you describe, really understanding the perspectives of those involved, I think really helps with forgiving other people. So maybe you can talk more about that.
Sure. Well, for me, the big forgiveness piece, you know, I I actually had an easier time forgiving my mother. My mother was the one that thought I was possessed by the devil, and that story is also in the book.
Yeah.
But I had a harder time, I was able to forgive her because I felt that she didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And but I had the harder time forgiving myself because I realized that because I didn't know how to be a emotionally supportive mother,
Hmm.
my kids went through hardship that they wouldn't have gone through if I had been more emotionally available.
Yeah.
And I realized why I wasn't emotionally available
Yeah.
because I had, learned the skills to survive.
Right.
And that didn't include being emotionally available,
No.
at the time. But but in my 50s, when I was doing personal work, and I realized that I I really had been a subpar mom.
Hmm.
I hadn't been the super mom that I was trying so hard to be,
Yeah.
earning the money, providing the home, being there whenever I was there, going to all the kids' activities, doing all the stuff.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But not really being there emotionally
Yeah.
present,
Yeah.
um, impacted them.
Hmm.
And my and it wasn't until I got married the third time, my third husband, who is the love of my life, it really
Oh.
was worth waiting for.
Oh, that's so great.
he was the one that said, Lori, you just have to forgive yourself. You always have done the very best you ever could.
Right.
And and Bill helped me realize that that's really true.
Yeah.
I've always done the very best I can, and by God, it was pretty damn good with what I
Yeah.
had to work with.
Yeah.
So let's just forgive myself and move on. Just
Exactly.
drop all that crap and just move on.
Yeah. Well,
And I did.
yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting too, because it's hard for people to do that. It's so hard for people to just let it go. It's like
I
the
know.
mind just wants to grab a hold of it and just have a story
I
forever,
know.
you know?
You know, and but the bottom line is if you're going to live some other dreams,
Hmm.
chase some other dreams, you got to travel a little lighter. I mean,
Yeah.
why do you want to have
Oh,
shackles on your feet,
totally.
and lead boots on?
Yeah. The
Yuck.
baggage is overwhelming.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So you got to drop it,
Yeah.
and then you're able to move on.
Yeah. Well, you speak about something I think is fairly common is you said that you were amazing in your professional life, right?
Yeah,
Communication but the personal life was suffering, right? I
right,
know a lot of people like this. They're excellent.
right.
I mean, like the best business people, the
Exactly.
communication is amazing, and
I
personally,
know.
it's just
It's
terrible.
just terrible. And you know what? Especially, I think women in my age group that excelled in business really have struggled with that one
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah.
And I think the younger generations are doing a whole lot better.
Hmm.
But, the problem was in the baby boomer generation of mine, and what's the one that's right under the baby boomer, the Gen X?
Me, the Gen Xers that
You,
no
the
one
Gen
ever
Xers.
remembers. Lori, I always say this to my friends that were my age, It's like no one talks about Gen X. We're like the lost
Well,
generation of
you
people.
are, because you're
Yeah,
like the latchkey generation,
yeah.
and it really sucks. They talk about our generation because there's so many of us.
Oh,
There's
there's lots of
just
you. Yeah.
gazillions of us.
Yeah.
But I think the real thing is that I know for myself, I was considered very successful,
Hmm.
and I won awards. I knew how to talk. I could convince people. I could motivate staff, all those kinds of things. But I'll tell you what, I had a pretty good hiring process. All the employees that I hired, we sent to an industrial psychologist.
Ah,
I kid you not, we
there
really
you
did,
go.
because I wanted to make sure that people were set up to win, and that I was hiring people with the kinds of personality that would treat
Hmm.
my customers the way I wanted them treated and would communicate with other staff and all that. And I put tremendous work into team building,
Yeah.
and that's why I won the awards.
Yeah.
Um, and my second husband did remind me, he says, Lori, the difference is that you didn't hire us and you sure as hell can't fire us. Well, I
He's
eventually
not
fired
wrong.
him, but it was a long time, it was too late coming.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is that in a family life, we're really living out our own insecurities.
Yeah.
And we're really still kind of caught up into how we were programmed.
Right.
And you think about women in in my generation and your generation,
Thank you for
we
that.
were always, yes. I mean, how
Just
many
kidding.
times were you told to be good?
Yeah.
Lindsay, be good, be
Yeah.
good, be good. Well, what does that look like? That means you're supposed to shut up, look pretty,
Yeah.
and comply.
Right. I always had the opposite though in me as a young person. I don't want to comply. I was always a questioner. I never looked at authority figures like they were above anybody. I didn't understand the hierarchy of anything. So that's kind of interesting. But my mom and I were just having this conversation the other day she said the same thing. And she's 74 and she was like, yeah, it was like you just shut your mouth and you don't say anything. That's how she was raised, you know. You just,
Yeah.
so that
Well, see, I was raised like that, but I got put in the nut house because I didn't behave like that.
see what they
You
did to
know,
you.
I was possessed by the devil because I wouldn't shut up.
Wow.
Um, but
I'm
I
sorry.
think that's
Good
I
times.
know it's just
That
hilarious. I mean, it
concept.
really is. It is.
Wow.
Um, anyway, the I think I think what happens why there's such a gap between the personal and the professional is that personally, sometimes we're still trying to be that ideal woman,
Hmm.
whether it be the good person or the Hollywood version of us,
Yeah.
or the religious version of us,
Hmm.
or whatever those cultural beliefs version of us may be.
Yeah.
And we're not,
Right.
we're ourselves.
Yeah.
And whereas professionally, we're in a role, we're
Yeah. I was going to say
doing.
that.
It's all
Mhm.
about doing professionally.
Yeah.
Whereas personally, it's really about being. I mean, you still got to do all the shit,
Yeah.
but but it's
Yeah.
really about the being, that
Right.
role of being. So
Well,
I
and
think that's
yeah, you say something interesting too. Personally, you said that the insecurities of your personal self are there, and when you're with your personal world or your family, you're kind of comfortable being the real you, you know, or sometimes showing those sides that you would not show somebody professionally, right? I mean, you're not going to probably show them the underworld like you would in your home or whoever's in your house. You know, it just seems like there's a
yeah,
there's almost like the mind sort of knows when, like you said, to put on the role and it plays that
yeah.
role. Hmm.
I I think that I was just so much happier at work.
Yeah,
I was so much happier at work.
yeah.
And and I wasn't happy at home.
Hmm.
So I think it really depends upon the individual. But I do know, and one of the main goals I had when I started out writing The Magic of Yes was to really talk to those people that had the gap
Hmm.
between their personal life and their professional life.
Yeah,
And and I realized it's really come to address people that have a dream and they just want to know how to get to wherever that dream is.
yeah,
They have a desire
yeah,
that they want to fulfill.
yeah,
And and so I really wanted to write a guidebook to help people be able to reach that desire, to
yeah,
reach their dream,
yeah,
and to give them examples of how to do that.
yeah. Do you do speaking at all on the topic, like in front of groups or?
I'm certainly available to do that.
Yeah,
Yes,
I was
I
curious
am.
if you.
And I'm available to do that. And another thing that I just decided to offer for a while, because I think it would be really fun. And my book is newly published. It just has been out for 2 months. So,
Yeah.
but if people want to get together, their book club or a
Hmm.
group of friends, friends with dreams,
Yeah.
and want to schedule an hour with me to help facilitate their
Oh,
group,
yeah. That'd be
I'll be
fun.
happy to do that. I'll be
That's
happy to
great.
do that. And you can sign up for that on my website.
Okay. I'll make sure
Yeah.
and link all this stuff in the show notes too. That's really a
Yeah.
great idea. Like the
Yeah.
author, you get a little tea time or sip some wine with Lori.
Wine's good. Wine's
Yeah,
good.
I know. I added that in there because
It,
that's what I would choose too. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I
But
know.
I think a lot of times, I just really want people to have a way to follow their dreams and to reach their dreams. And it's a great learning experience for me.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
really fun for me.
Yeah. The more you share, the more you learn, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, can you talk about one other thing in your book you talk about throughout is what's in it for me? You know,
Right.
this main concept throughout the book. Yeah. Can you touch on
Right.
that for a minute?
Yeah, we'll just touch on that. So it's called WIFM, knowing your WIFM, WIIFM. What's in it for me? And the me is the person that you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea behind it is if you can put yourself in that other person's shoes and really take on whatever context they're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
you then have the ability to understand them.
Right.
And so then you can communicate a lot more effectively.
Yeah, and you can solve problems if, like
Absolutely.
anything. It's also
Yeah,
great, I mean, any type of relationship to
right.
understand, the other person. I re
Exactly.
And that's so lacking with most of us, right? We don't really have
Right.
the tools to
Right.
solve a problem because everybody's in their head with their own perspective, thinking they're right, right? I mean,
Right.
let's just be,
Right.
I'm
I
right,
mean,
you're wrong. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And but I'll tell you, I think with them is secret sauce. It really is. It's really a secret to success.
Yeah.
Because if you can really put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand that context,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
you get it.
Yeah.
You get it. You know how to communicate.
Right. And you can understand their perspective. I mean, you can see why they're doing what they're doing, why they believe what they
Right.
believe. You can understand it. And just opens the door to a whole new, you know,
Totally.
totally new way of living. Yeah.
Absolutely. It really does.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think that we can probably wrap up here, but I just wanted to ask you anything else. Is there anything that comes to your mind that you would like to share? Anything about the book or anything in your life?
what I'd love to share is that I would love to invite your listeners to download a free dream
Mm-hmm.
and go to my website. And Lindsay will have it. It's just loripappas.com. And under dream, you can download a dream that helps you discover your essence, the
Yeah.
foundational piece of it. So the dreams that are available to download are winning with the cards that you were dealt, or if your dream is saying no and setting boundaries,
Mm.
or forgiving yourself and others, or if you might dream to become the curious entrepreneur of your own life.
Yeah.
Um, Download the model
Mm.
and take a look at it. And then if you want to know how to apply it and how other people did it, buy my book.
Right. And you've got
The magic of
great,
yes.
the other thing that's great in the book is you weave all these personal stories of other women, which is really fun
Yeah.
it's really fun to read. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you like it, Lindsay.
oh, I do. It's just great. I told you this when we chatted earlier, but I love your writing style. It's just so authentic and real. And I think everyone would really enjoy it. So buy The Magic of Yes.
Oh, great. And write a review on Amazon, please, because you got to deal with their stupid algorithm.
Oh, I know.
So
The whole thing is a
we need
mess, isn't it?
reviews. I know.
I'll leave you a review. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for joining me today, Lori. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope we can do it again.
Oh, absolutely. We'll definitely do it again. Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, sounds
Bye-bye.
great. Bye, Lori.
That'll wrap up today's show. Until next time, I invite you to check out my website at livelikeeden.com. You can sign up for a weekly email reminder when my new podcast and blog comes out, which is every Wednesday. If you are struggling with your own awakening process and you need further assistance or guidance, you can also sign up for a free consult, and I would be more than happy to work with you. If you're enjoying the show, I ask that you share it with others that you think it might benefit. Until next time, thank you so much for listening.